Welcome to a new edition of Jazz Perspectives, the Fort Worth Public Library Jazz Archives project. First show on location. I'm Mike Price, and we're visiting today with Marjorie Crenshaw, the can I say the mother of jazz in Fort Worth?
I am now.
I've never heard you brag about your accomplishments. We're gonna see if we can't bring that to a peak here.
That's not me.
The history of jazz as a social force and an economic force and an artistic force in Fort Worth would be, I think, considerably less without the influence of Ms. Crenshaw over the long haul, starting in, I think, the music teaching profession and continuing into the present day. I mean, retirement notwithstanding, this is a force to be reckoned with. Tell me about your teaching career, for starters.
Well, I taught public school music to the elementary grades. I started off with the 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And then finally, they dropped the 6th grade and put it in middle school.
Right.
So then I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I started at Gay Street School, which is down near what we call, Lancaster and 35 downtown. All of that was called Baptist Hill.
Right.
And we had St. John Church there, St. Peter Presbyterian was there, and Gay Street School was there, and across from the projects are still there.
Yes.
And that was a neighborhood. Right near on 18th Street and I.M. Terrell. The children would leave there and go to Carver, and then they'd go from Carver to I.M. Terrell.
To Terrell. Now, what years are we talking about here?
Oh my God, it's 1950.
1950.
1950.
By which time, now, I know that Terrell, by 1950, already had a jazz studies program in place.
Not really.
Not in the sense of an academic, but the attitude was there.
Oh, the attitude
and
was
in
there.
fact, what was their name? The quartet called the Four Aces had already come out of Terrell to gain some national recognition. And so there was an interest in this
realm
of teaching.
Right.
I think it was, now correct me if I'm wrong, this was exclusive to Black Fort Worth, am I correct?
Exactly. Exactly.
What
the Gem Hotel.
The Gem Hotel, right.
Yeah. And the street, 3rd Street downtown, right south of the Rock Church, which is still there.
Sure.
And the Waters House, which was across the street, it was a large house with upstairs, which was unusual. And they lived on the corner. And Arnett's home was right behind there.
That would be Ornette Coleman we're talking about.
Arnett Coleman with, he lived in one of those small, shotgun houses.
Right.
Yeah. But that's where he was. All of that together.
Starting, say, in 1950, how many years did you teach there in that particular area?
Until probably 59. 58.
What forms of music were you teaching the kids?
I taught them the basic songs that they needed to know. I taught them seasonal songs. That also, we had a listening program.
Yeah.
They heard classical music. They heard spirituals. We used to sing the country songs from various countries. For instance, I taught them Old Canada, and people wondered how they got that, but it was in the 6th grade book, so we learned
Like the national anthem.
Yeah, the national anthem. So we taught them all. Hymns were in there also. But in the meantime, I taught something about the jazz person.
Yeah, I was about to ask. That's got to be part of it.
And all up on my bulletin board, that I got every chance I could, I would put them up. Nobody told me to, but I did.
See, when I was in grade school in the 1950s, we were forbidden to even think about jazz.
Well, we weren't supposed to be thinking about it either.
Okay.
But we had a unit. The last unit of the year from about the middle of April to May, you could talk about important personalities.
And that
was my opportunity.
That was your leverage.
That's it.
Okay, now, what important personalities were you introducing?
Oh,
the
I
kids
had
to?
Sarah Vaughan,
Uh-huh.
Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole,
Yeah.
Duke Ellington, Count Basie, the Modern Jazz Quartet with all three of them, and then the Jackson family, and then the Heath brothers. Now, they probably never had heard of them, but they got to hear about them through me.
So you were basically doing a great composers and artists section.
Exactly.
Just
And
like
that
you
was a
would-
chance to do
Just
it.
like you'd teach Mozart or Paderewski.
And I also taught them that jazz had a form.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't just thrown together like some people thought. And it came out of really, if you want to say this, the Holy Roller Church,
Yeah.
and jazz in the church was being used. And Milt Jackson and those kind of people all belonged to that religion.
Yes.
Now, I was a Methodist, so now, we didn't have that. No, we didn't do that. But we would go, after we got out of our church on Rosedale, we would go down to Love Chapel and listen to them play.
Ooh.
Or either there was a man called Dr. Nix. No, let's see, Daddy Nix. And he had a loudspeaker outside of his church.
Now, this was a preacher.
This is a preacher. And they were doing all that music and stuff that you could hear, and tambourines and all of this. Yeah, and we would leave our church at night, because at that time we had night service.
Uh-huh.
And then we go by Daddy Nix to hear the music.
To hear the music.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Well, there's always been a fascinating connection that not a lot of people will acknowledge between the church and the jazz
Exactly.
and the root form blues.
That's right.
I think some people are afraid to acknowledge it, and people
Well-
on either side are afraid to acknowledge it sometimes because, well, that couldn't have come from there. Well, yeah, it comes from everywhere.
That's right, because it's sort of like the story about the Star Spangled Banner.
Sure.
It's supposed to be a saloon tune. Yeah. But I don't know who will admit to that now.
Well, if the music's in the air, you
You pick it
ought to
up.
feel free to reach
Yeah.
out and grab it.
And see, the Holiness Church always added.
Uh-huh.
They added their chords and things. They were different. We played it like it was written in the Methodist Church.
One chord at a time.
1, 4, 5, 1. That was it.
Yeah.
But they added. They had a creative mind.
Well, moving chords.
Yeah.
Moving
yeah.
chords, hold the note and change the key around it.
Yeah, and they could
Sure.
go, and when you said sing whatever it was you wanted to be sung, they didn't have to have the book like I would have to have.
Well, that's what Bessie Smith was talking about when she sang Moan You Mourners.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's exact. And they had this ear,
Uh-huh.
and they were, that's a blessing.
Yes.
But at that time, if my piano teacher had called me trying to play something about ear, I'd get in trouble. None of them allowed us to do that.
So you were stuck in the classroom
That's right.
playing it straight,
That's right.
but you had that little window of
Freedom.
personalities.
Yeah, and then every once in a while I'd throw a few 7 and 9s in the classroom. Like I do at church now.
Flatted the notes a bit.
I do that now at my church.
Well, yeah. And
And it makes it more interesting.
and people probably come away from the experience a little bit more
That's
satisfied.
right,
with it.
exactly.
That's how many years in teaching overall?
34.
34 years.
34 years.
Did you ever stop to count the number of students you had that went on into careers in music?
I counted one that became very outstanding. You probably might have met him. Did you ever meet Sheldon Bolden? And
Of
he
course,
told me
Babs.
after he got grown that I was the cause of him pursuing music as a career in North Texas. Nobody had ever asked him to sing. And I was walking around in the classroom, because you can't sit down in the classroom with music and hear who's doing what,
Right.
because they think they're going to get in there and play. And that wasn't going to happen. They were going to work, because I used to pass out the melody bells. We would play songs. And you had to work. We had music books. We had our liner books, and they had to learn the scales. And exceptional children picked that up, a lot of them. And so Sheldon picked that up. And I gave him a part in an operetta.
Huh?
And that's when he started singing. He said,
And
but nobody had ever asked him. And then just 2 years ago, a young man called me from Houston, Robert Washington, and told me, he said, you know, the music that you taught us, the classics, I'm using it in my work. He is a therapist, musical therapist.
Wow.
I would have never thought he was listening to anything I was saying. Because he was a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert was a character, but you just don't know what children are thinking. You don't know what's going to come out of what you do.
Well, that's why you make sure they're at least going through the motions of learning.
That's right.
And
they should be exposed to it.
Yeah, and the exposure itself
Yeah.
is sometimes more than enough. That's an amazing. Tell me about your family. Your family is musical from
Well, my
back before
dad's
your
people,
time.
every child had an instrument. Every child had to play something. So my father worked on the railroad, but he played violin.
Yes.
He played upright bass. And they had a little band in Marshall over near Wiley College.
Uh-huh.
And after he moved to Fort Worth, well, we used to play duets at Our Lady of Mercy Catholic School down on Verbena, 800 block of Verbena. When we had programs, we would play duets. And he just loved music. And we went to Will Rogers when Jazz Philharmonic was here.
Yeah.
And but now, remember now, he's a church man.
Right.
He belonged to St. Andrews United Methodist Church. It was St. Andrews Episcopal then, because they had not joined together.
Sure.
But he always made sure that we got to see the people who came here, who counted. Number one, they would probably be on the train with him that day. And they would sometimes, like Duke Ellington and them would have a car set out, you know, the train would set a car out on the yard. Right there where the TRE is going now. And they slept on there sometimes. But then they came into the neighborhood and stayed too, because they couldn't stay in the hotels downtown.
Right.
So you got to meet all these people. So then my dad and his family played something. My mother played piano. And as a result, they gave me piano lessons and told me that's what I was going to do. I had no choice, like people do now. That's why we're running out of people now, because children don't take lessons anymore.
Well, of course, yeah.
And within the church, we had a built-in system. We don't
Church
have
and
that
family
anymore.
tradition, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And we'd be around the piano singing.
Well,
now, I was an only child, but all of this happened.
We've sacrificed a lot of music education in recent years, too, especially in the public schools.
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
The
Music and art have suffered.
Well, don't get either of us started on the politics involved there, but we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it suffered.
And the newer administrations keep promising, yes, we're going to bring this back. Yes, we're going to start hiring music teachers.
They need to.
And how could you ever stand to retire? I mean, you ought to be in there. You ought to be in there hitting them today. That's.
But you don't have enough freedom.
You don't have the creative freedom, and you don't have the freedom to enforce discipline that is necessary to
do
Right?
this.
Yeah.
That's that, and you must have discipline.
Yes.
Because music is a discipline, and it teaches you how to be disciplined. Because most of the work is done on your own time.
Yeah.
When you become a soloist or anything, it's not what you get from the teacher gives it to you, but you have to come home and do the practice.
Yeah.
And then they have to make sure, the parents do, that the children are doing this. For instance, when I got up in the morning at 7 a.m., my mother had me on the piano from 7 until 8.
Wow.
Every day, except Sunday. And then in the afternoon, when I came home, I put my books down, took off my school clothes, and I went in and practiced another hour. And that was every day.
Did you enjoy it? Did you appreciate the
You know, in the afternoon, I wanted to go outside,
Yeah.
but I couldn't. I knew better. So,
You knew better.
Yeah, so I just automatically did that every day for at least 12 years. Because, see, I went through the W.S. Matthews 12th grade. Now, you know that's something.
Right.
Matthews isn't even used anymore.
Yeah.
It was difficult. It was hard.
And beyond high school,
We had one high school,
one high school,
I Am Terrell.
yes.
Yes. And you would be amazed that the talent was in that one high school
Oh, yeah.
because we're still listening to them. We had Arnett Coleman, we had Dewey Redmond,
Right.
Thomas Reese, John Pointer, and it was a fact that everybody played something.
Went on.
The
and
boys
on.
played.
Yeah.
They had to take piano. Yeah, because I have a friend named Hillary Green who can still sit down to this day and play drifting.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and the first piano teacher I had lived right across the street, right over there in that house.
Uh-huh.
And her piano is in our church now, down in the basement, and they use it. She had finished Fisk University in Nashville,
Good gracious.
and she had a baby grand, and she taught us all. But then afterwards, I started the Catholic school, Our Lady of Mercy. Not Our Mother of Mercy, it was Our Lady of Mercy first. And it's still standing at 800 Pavina, and they are doing something to it now. I think that's where they're going to build a library,
Okay.
right there near that pavilion. Okay, so the sisters started teaching me. So after school, I went to Catholic school 8 years and would have finished, but I couldn't go to Nolan because I was black.
Oh,
Yeah, I would have gone all the way through.
tricky.
Yeah, so that's the way, we had 8 grades. And then in the afternoon, I would go to piano lessons, to the sisters. They had a house on the end of that lot.
Sure.
And they taught me until I got to middle school, or it was junior high then.
Right.
Yeah. And Mrs. Barnwell, who lived on the, what we call the access road to 35, taught a group of us. And she was a music major too, from South Carolina. Now her husband was over the, well, I guess it's Animal Protection Services in Austin, Dr. Barnwell. I don't know whether you ever heard of him. Ferdinand Rivers Barnwell.
Wow.
Okay. And so she taught the piano. And her daughter was my classmate. She had a daughter named Omega. Her father belonged to the fraternity Omega Psi Phi.
Sure.
So they named her Omega. Yeah, she was the last. Okay. So that was the meaning of that. And Langston Hughes used to stay there when he would come to this city.
Good gracious.
Yeah, because his Reverend Barnwell and Langston were classmates.
Okay.
They were part of that Harlem Renaissance.
Sure, yeah.
But he became a minister, and then he worked for the state. And he would go all over the state talking about birds and animals and all this. He taught that.
What an amazing history.
Yeah, he taught all of that. And then he was our associate pastor at St. Andrews. So he was busy. Yeah, he was busy.
How old were you when you first recognized jazz as a music that appealed to you?
Ooh. I guess I was about 8 years old.
And what year would that have been?
Well, it had to be 1935 or 36.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you were hearing a lot of.
Oh, I heard that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right in the moment.
Because my dad had this old Victrola wind-up,
Uh-huh.
and he had, I remember Victor Records
Sure.
with the dog sitting there.
Yep.
With the megaphone right there. Yeah. He had a Bessie Smith.
Sure.
Then he also had the Fifth Jubilee Singers.
Uh-huh.
So we got, he liked both kinds. And so we used to listen to that. So it was in the home, always.
And you carried that all through, wow,
Yeah,
all through your schooling and all through your career.
all through my schooling. So when I left, Adelaide Trezevant was my last piano teacher. And I'm sure you've heard about the choir that they have named after her now. And they gave a concert last Sunday at Baker Chapel. But it was named for, she taught piano. And at that time at I Am Terrell, she taught band. Because it was a matter of economics. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
Fort Worth would not pay a teacher to be a band teacher and a choral teacher and general music teacher. So she had to do it all. Now, you know, that was a terrific job.
That's a tremendous job.
And I remember seeing her marching with the band downtown. And then she had to come back and, you know, teach regular classes,
Regular
music
classes.
classes, and the chorus.
Wow.
Yeah,
What year did you graduate from high school?
1943.
And then from there, your college degrees, where did all that begin?
2 years I was at Fisk University
Fisk University.
in Nashville. Then I went to Wiley College, and that's where I graduated undergrad.
Undergrad. And then, let me see if I've got this right. Your master's is that in music
Education, yes.
Is
From
from
University of North Texas.
North Texas.
Of course, now I went to several schools in between. Oh, I got a chance to go to the University of Denver, Lamont School of Music. That's what we would do in the summer. We would make a vacation, but you would study.
Did you ever consider a career in performing?
Yes, but that was hopeless. Because where were you going to perform?
Where indeed?
They wouldn't allow you to play with the symphony. I had visions of, you know, doing that, but it wasn't possible.
What about jazz? What about jazz piano?
I never felt comfortable doing it. Now, my husband used to say that I could play jazz. He said, you do play it, but I didn't feel free because, you know, that old thing about don't do it was still in the back of my head. Yeah, so that's what happened.
Wow.
So those who were allowed to do it, well, some of the boys got away with that. Yeah, they did, because that's what they broke the chains and they. Being instrumentalists, they had a better opportunity to do that.
So you redirected the interest.
Right.
That's what led you to pursue your career here in Fort Worth all these years?
Well, being an only child.
Being an only child.
And my parents were living. Well, you know, I was going to be here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't going too far. I would go and come back.
Tell me about your husband.
Willie Crenshaw. He was raised on the south side on Magnolia. And they had places over there before 35 came through. And he started playing music from Mr. Fowler, W.A. Fowler.
Yeah.
Now that was a jewel there. Mr. Fowler taught almost every band teacher that we had in Fort Worth. And he was a disciplinarian. Charles Scott was one. Nay Scott was there. Gina Hilpler. Oh, I mean, they all played. And I have wondered to this day, where did he get the instruments? But the Masonic Lodge used to help him.
Sure.
Yeah, they used to help him to get, and they had uniforms. I remember the lady who lived next door to us on this side used to cook cakes, pies, and things so that they could buy the uniform. Yeah. And so they used to travel too. I remember they went to Alabama once and California once. And the mothers and fathers would get out and help to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had to sell food. Like and that's one thing that nobody wanted to do, but they had to.
That's just part of the discipline of music.
Music always. That's right. And to this day, I bet they're still selling something in the schools for the band.
It wouldn't surprise me,
Yeah.
but I think it was more essential in those days.
Oh, it was.
Unless I don't know. They could always allocate more budget money, but I think they
Oh, they didn't. No,
I think they needed more for football, don't they?
Of course.
Yes.
And you know, at my college that I went to was famous for football up until a few years ago. Their coach, I don't know whether you ever heard him, they call him Coach Long. They call him Big Long. Okay. And they had SWAC then, you know, the Southwestern. The same one Eddie Robertson and all these people belonged to, Grambling and Prairie View, because it was an all-black conference.
Right.
And some kind of way, they had to have a band,
Sure.
you know, to go along with the football game. And I've always said if they didn't have football, we wouldn't have any bands.
I think that's probably a
That's
pretty
it.
practical observation.
And so as a result, when Wiley decided they wouldn't have a football team, the band went. because they had a group that had folk in there who became as famous as Frederick Tillis, Dr. Frederick Tillis. He was over the University of Massachusetts jazz program from Wiley College, Galveston, Texas. Yeah.
Boy. Well, now what was Mr. Crenshaw's involvement in music over the long term?
He taught music too at
Yes.
Gwen. And that was when they had the elementary school,
Sure.
and the middle school was over there also. And then afterwards he decided he would go to New York
Okay.
and pursue the music. And Charles Moffett
Sure.
got him a job in the school system in New York. But he always said that he should have moved when they did.
Okay.
The timing was wrong. Yeah, even in New York. Because when they all moved away from Fort Worth, all of them went ahead. Yeah. And it's like Shannon Jackson says, there are a lot of good musicians who did not leave
Right.
and stayed here and taught. John Porter is one of those.
Yes.
Yeah. And John Porter played trumpet. And now he's a pianist, jazz pianist.
An amazing talent.
So Crenshaw went on and he moved to New York. He started, and of course, you have to be a teacher or something. You got to have a salary if you're a jazz musician.
Yeah.
Job must be there.
Right.
Something to bounce back on is Bobby Watson says, if that's what you're going to do, you better get out there and really get your degree and then go on. Yeah. And so as a result, they all went to school and went to college first. And then
Yeah.
they would pursue. Like Dewey.
Sure.
He taught band 6 years. He said, well, he told his mother, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going on. I'll make it or break it.
That's Dewey Redmond. we're
Dewey
talking about.
Redmond.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make it or break it. Oh, and she wasn't happy about that.
Well, no, it's a risk.
She wanted him to teach
risk.
school.
But
Most of them wanted their children to teach school. That was all you could do then.
teaching school is a wonderful profession.
But
if you
hey,
got something more to say, you better get out there
That's
and say
right,
it.
exactly. The only one who didn't go to college and do this was Arnett.
Yeah.
And they said I remember they said he would never amount to too much.
But Ornette invented a whole new kind of music.
Yeah, so he went out and he found him something. Yeah, I don't understand it, but he found it.
I have no idea what it is that
I
he's
told
found,
him,
but
I
I've
said,
certainly-
Arnett, I love you dearly, but I don't know what you're doing.
No.
Harmolodics,
Harmolodics, yes. He
whatever
was-
that is.
Well, he started using that term a long time
Oh,
ago.
years
and
ago.
And at first I said, are you putting me on? And he said, no, I'm not putting you on.
No,
And he wasn't.
No.
And I knew he wasn't.
he was sincere.
But you gotta have some fun with him at the same time, because
It's a strange sound.
it's a very
But now, you know, Arnett used to go down to Crenshaw's house and practice. They would practice together
Yeah.
when they were in high school. And, you know, I don't know whether you ever heard about how Arnett dressed
oh yeah.
and how he wore his hair.
He told me that he was a beatnik.
Yeah, and he had this hair down to here,
Yeah.
and it wasn't popular then.
No.
And he had this coat that came down to here, and Crenshaw's aunts told him, don't bring him in here. And it hurt Crenshaw so badly. But Arnett was such a lovely person. He said, don't feel bad. I know you got to stay here.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Now, he had that much sense at that young age.
a very thoughtful fellow. I don't
But
think he's
wouldn't
ever.
hurt a fly.
Yeah. And I've picked up on
Wouldn't
that all
hurt
the
a
years
fly.
I've known him.
Sweet as he can be. Now, his sister, Truvenza, might give you some trouble.
Oh, I
Because she
remember.
blessed you out real good.
I remember Truvenza very well.
Yeah, because when we had the women in jazz
Yeah.
at the Caravan of Dreams, and somebody asked her to play, she said, I don't know anything about those folks. So they said, I said, I'll ask her.
Yes, yeah.
And she did it.
Oh, she was great. I was there.
Yeah, she